All right, now let's get into Adams, because we've seen what one great receiver can do to this team. And Adams played pretty well against the Niners last year. I mean, he had touchdowns. He had the long catch in the NFC Championship game. It's really that the Niners pass rush stifled this Packers offense from doing anything. And now that pass rush isn't there anymore. So can the Niners cover Davante Adams, or is he going to do what Hopkins and Metcalf did? Who's first?
Jack.
I think the 49ers are going to be fine with him. Adams is going to make a few plays, but I think we're going to see Mosley and Verrett do a much better job on him than we saw last week. He's a smaller guy, so it's not going to be quite that physical presence that they had to face last week. And nobody throws a better deep ball than Russell Wilson. And there was some good coverage on a couple of those deep passes that were caught. So I think they're going to be okay.
I'm right there with Jack. I wrote about it yesterday. I think they're better suited to guard someone like Davante Adams. And I think Davante Adams is one of my favorite watching wide receivers because how much finesse, how disrespectful he is with his route running and releasing. But you look at the wide receivers that they've really struggled with, Hopkins. I know, Hopkins kind of a little more branchier towards Adams, but especially Julio Jones last year and DK Metcalf last week. The one players that these guys cannot cover, just those big bodies, underratedly, deceptively speedy receivers like those two. And so very much at that point, you just need someone that can match up with them. And they don't. But at least they have a better matchup in terms with Adams. He's not too fast. It's just pretty much like just don't too much bite on what his head knots are or that plant foot. Don't fall for that false step that he likes to do to get corners bite on him. So I think in terms of matchup wise, this is better suited for them, and especially if they want to skew the looks in terms of like the coverage, the back in terms of like the safety or even switching Verrett on him. I think they're better suited, though. I wouldn't still shock me if he still explodes because I feel like when it gets to backyard football, if the pass rush doesn't get there, then that's when he's really dangerous because that's when him and Rodgers really had that connection.
Yeah. Leo.
So I feel like we shouldn't compare last year's 49ers team to this matchup. Yeah. Whether what they did to Julio Jones, to Davante Adams, or DK last year, we shouldn't, because I'm not too concerned about the initial route with Davante Adams. It's other guys are going to get open because if you don't give Rodgers pressure, he's not Goff, he's not Newton, he's not just going to throw that ball early within the play. He'll sit there and he'll let something develop. That's been his MO. Him and Wilson did the same thing on Sunday, and look what happened there. And so he'll sit there. Someone's eventually going to get open, like Marquise Valdez. He runs. Yeah, he runs like a 4.3. So if you give Rodgers 6 seconds to find somebody, I'm sure with his 4.3 speed, he's going to get open eventually. You could only cover them for so long. And then especially if you're playing zone all game, Rodgers is going to eventually figure you out, whether it's in the third or the fourth quarter, if you're not giving him a pass rush.
Yeah, you got to play some man against this guy. What's up?
I think there's a big issue if the Packers do what the Seahawks did last week and make it where DK Metcalf was on Emmanuel Mosley, make it where Davante Adams was on Emmanuel Mosley this Thursday. When I was watching it, 8 of DK Metcalf's catches, 11 targets, were on Mosley in coverage, and he was playing soft on him a lot. I think they had a couple of those out routes on the sidelines that converted, and then they obviously that long touchdown where Mosley was playing so far off him, he fell and was nowhere near him. And I think that's something they got to do with Adams. They put him on that side. If they want to switch Jason Verrett on side to side, that's good. But then you also have possibly Allen Lazard coming back, who in 3 games has 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty good for a guy that not a lot of people know about. And I think if he's able to play, the Niners could be in trouble with those 2 wide receivers. And then, like Leo said, MVS playing, he's a burner and he can beat him too.
What I remember about Lazard and MVS is that they're big height, weight, speed guys that aren't necessarily good route runners. So if you're playing zone and you let Aaron Rodgers scramble around, those guys could just run through your defense. But if you just put someone on them, you should be okay. The way I look at Davante Adams is, again, like you said, I don't think that Emmanuel Mosley's coverage was terrible. It was just he got punked, right? I mean, he got punked. He's just not big enough to cover DK Metcalf, who's built like a tight end. He's not going to get punked by Davante Adams. Adams is significantly smaller. He's still bigger than Mosley, but not going to dominate him. And Mosley will be right there. I thought Mosley did a pretty good job against him last year. So if you play 2-man with a safety over the top and you let these 5'9" and 5'11" corners stay in their hip pocket in underneath trail coverage, that should be pretty good. And the thing about the Seahawks that's different than the Packers is Robert Saleh said it yesterday. They came into that game geared up to stop Tyler Lockett because, as I said all week, that's the guy who had been killing teams. But the Seahawks have DK Metcalf too, and they understood what the Niners were going to do on defense. So they said, okay, this week we'll go to DK Metcalf. The Packers can't do that. I mean, it's not like they could be like, oh, we're going to have a Marquez Valdez-Scantling. No, he's not. No. So as long as you can just stop Davante Adams and essentially double him, which is kind of what two-man is, doubled everywhere you go, you should be okay. Although the Niners are 7-point dogs for a reason. What's up, Jose?
I don't know why I failed to mention this because I wrote it in the article too. Adams operates from the slot too, so I think K1's definitely going to have a nice matchup with him. And if anything, he's the one I think best suited because he has no problem. It's almost like he's scrappy enough to get in there with Adams and won't let him like have his way and stuff like that. So I think that's another one that's going to be fun to watch.
The unfortunate part about that is that K1's going to have to blitz in order to.
Yeah, that's another one too. Yeah.
No, but the whole point that the Niners like Jimmy Ward is that you can blitz K1 Williams and bring Jimmy Ward right down and have him there covering man-to-man and just as well, right? That's the whole point of Jimmy Ward. So let's see Jimmy Ward in coverage too, because we ain't going to see him making plays in center field, and apparently that's okay. I'm still trying to get my head around that, but great. Okay, Jimmy, go do your thing in the slot.